For lower income groups, I think there's a migration to lower priced products, which may well be the lower priced, intensively produced white meats. But this wonderful higher group search for higher priced special treat meat meals. There is the opportunity where they want something which is unequivocally better. They want to pay more for more. And that's the trick, is to work out what do they value. Quickly on this, I started a little late.
You did start late.
Yeah, can I go to 10? Yeah. I mean, what sort of intrigues me, I'm sort of asked, I talk around the world, and I'm always intrigued by what I'm asked to talk about. And so just before Christmas this year, I was asked in New Orleans for a really huge conference to talk about the demonization of the modern food industry. This is in the US. I thought, wow, what's all that about? And because in the dock, the modern food and drink industry is being charged with threatening the health and well-being of the planet, consumers, food safety, obesity, etc., and food system participants. This is abusing farm animals or, just squeezing suppliers to death. And there's a very vocal, very influential group who are making these claims. And you'll know some of the names. These are the Michael Pollans of this world. Marion Nestle. Then there's Eric Schlosser with his Fast Food Nation from way back. Or some of you might know Jonathan Safran Foer, very strong writer. And these are largely saying, we've got the wrong model. It's all too intensive. It's ruining biodiversity. And they're very vocal, and they're bloody good at what they do. I think they're a first team. And often we put our second team out to bat against them. Normally it'd be some sort of corporate lawyer. And you think the minute he or she opens his mouth, they're lost. Whereas the Pollans of this world, what's he saying? Eat food. Not too much. Mostly plants. That's his view of the world. It's not good from a meat perspective. And again, DVDs like Food Inc. or The End of the Line about that we're running out of fish, etc. So let's just look at the evidence just very quickly. First of all, is the modern food industry, is it ruining the health of developed nation people? Well, actually, if you look at obesity levels in selected countries, it doesn't look particularly pretty. This was, last slide I used was in Australia. And what have we got? Right at the top of the charts, the US, followed by Argentina, Mexico, and then surprisingly, does it surprise you, Australia coming in right high? I mean, I'm always intrigued by that. It's one of, if I think of Australians, and often people I talk to who are not Australian, you think of Australians as being sort of lithe, lissom, blonde, tanned, athletic, jumping over things in one slide. And actually, of course, they're just like Canadians, round as a pudding. Yeah. So, evidence there saying that we're eating too much. Back to what Pollan's saying is, amongst other things, let's reduce the size of our plate. And I was in Guelph the other day in a Loblaws, and I just had to take a picture of this. It was so it's a T-bone steak. Okay. As I understand it, tell me if I'm wrong, for one, 564 grams. I mean, that's enough for a family of 6 in my country. You'd think, oh, isn't that nice? They've wrapped up that joint all in one. I wonder how I carve it. And I'm thinking, good Lord, I don't know how you can find time in the day to eat the amount of meat you guys do. It's astonishing. Yeah. Thanks for coming. You'll have to break shortly to get another 400 grams down here. And if I look at what are the governments saying about this? I've just picked the US because it's over the border. What's the guidelines for last year? Eat less, exercise more. That sounds a bit like pollen. Eat more plants, pulses, seafood, etc. Eat moderately, which in the US is government code for eat less. Because USDA cannot say, politically, it is impossible for them to say, eat less meat. It is not possible. They can't say that. So it's shrouded in this moderately means less. and then eat significantly less sugar, salt, solid fats, etc. And of course, you've got big hitters like Michelle Obama working once again here with Walmart to try to address the issue associated with body size in the US. And I think the issues are as relevant in Canada too. And it's sort of interesting as we move into this century, there's much, much more interest in alternative medicines and the use of food to be part and parcel of our sort of health management program and our weight management program too. Of course, back to China, every single ingredient in Chinese food has a health attribute. Every single one. There's yin and yang, there's cold and hot, and it doesn't relate to temperature. Do you have to tell them anything about the impact of diet on health? Absolutely no, not at all. I think we're moving in their direction. The other sort of trend that I noticed, though, that's moving on from that, relates to food safety. And I think here you've got such a lot to offer, that if I look across, again at the border, the first thing Obama had to do when he came in as president was to strengthen FDA, food safety legislation, in apparently one of the more sophisticated countries in the world. And if I look at the public relations league tables of all stories on food in the US, that's from radio, TV, everything, papers, magazines, 50% of the food stories are about food safety. Notwithstanding that food has never been safer, but there's a perception that it isn't necessarily so. And of course you get these sort of ridiculous, irrational responses. Food safety tips for the budget conscious. Here we are from the New York Times. Kathleen McCleary of Falls Church, Virginia, says she started to buy her produce from a local farmer's market after falling ill with E. coli. I mean, I would have thought if you wanted to bloody guarantee that you're going to fall ill with the E. coli, you'd go and buy stuff from a farmer's market where, there's no protocols, there's no HACCP, but, it's completely flipped on its head. It's crazy, crazy. There we go. So, what's that all about? I mean, actually, this is an old slide again, but for my mind, it just says, consumers simply expect that the food industry has food safety sorted. They believe as a matter of course that we know exactly where all our ingredients come from, and if they find out that we don't, then they're outraged. And again, it's reminded to me about the importance of traceability, of the food safety protocols, etc. And linking with, next week I'll be in Chicago talking for McDonald's at their global supply meetings. And about 5 years ago, I was doing some work for them in New York where as people came out of a McDonald's outlet, we asked them the question, would you like to know exactly where the beef came from in the hamburger that you've just had? And what was the answer? No. The answer was, don't you know? Don't you know? And of course, we don't know. We know that it came from nominated suppliers in bull beef in containers from Australia and New Zealand, and that we mixed it with trimmings from 3 plants in the Midwest. We know that, but the consumer thinks we know exactly where it came from. And that's fine, as long as there's not a problem. If there's a problem, whack! See what's happening right at the moment with E. coli and vegetables in Europe. I've had 8 interviews with BBC and various others in the last two days. Markets destroyed. Don't eat anything. That, really dangerous fruit and vegetables. Don't eat it. No. This traceability, is it worth the penny to enter? Absolutely. And particularly, let's relate this to hormones where, I know maybe contentious in some areas. This is Australia, where there are 2 major retailers, Coles and Woolworths, and Coles have taken the decision that they will remove the implant, the ear implant, the hormone implant. So our fresh beef, no added hormones, no added cost to you. There they are, no added hormones on the beef on the shelf. And if I look at Safeway, Open Nature, they're sort of premium end, Safeway from the US, that is, 100% natural, raised without antibiotics, no added hormones, for one reason or another, and even though it bears no relationship to scientific fact, that hormones are perceived as being a safety issue. You try and tell consumers anything else apart from that. And it's sort of intriguing in Australia, where they put the implants for domestic beef, but any beef shipped to Japan and Europe, no. And then consumers, when Coles launched their program, said, excuse me, what are you doing? So you put this implant for the beef for Aussies, but you don't use it for people in Europe and Japan. Why? Are they sort of comfortable with that? No. They think it's a food safety issue.